All right. Assalamu alaikum. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah amma ba'd. Welcome back to Saturday night halaqa. And today, inshallah, or tonight, we're going to talk about, actually, it's going to be almost a follow-up from last time. So if you remember, last time we talked about the diaspora and that period of time where the Musa and his followers were asked to go into the city, into the holy city of Jerusalem. And when they refused, they were punished by wandering in the desert for 40 years. Now, there's certain events that happened before that I think we can learn a lot from. And today I want to talk about that period. If you remember, after the magicians became Muslim, all right, there's a period that maybe a lot of people may not know what happened, right? So that is a period between the magicians becoming believers and the Exodus, meaning when Musa and his followers left Egypt, all right? So there's a period of time, like I said, it's somewhat obscure. Not a lot of people talk about it, but there are some lessons we can learn from it. So this is why I want to focus on it tonight. And the passage in the Quran that I want to follow and study tonight is in Surah Al-A'raf. That is Surah number 7. And the ayat, the verses are 127 until 137. So there's like 10 verses or so. Obviously, I'm not going to have time to go over all the details in these verses. It's quite a bit, like 10 verses, and we have to cover them in about 30 minutes or so. So I'll scan over some of them, and I'll focus on certain lessons and certain things we can learn from these ayat. So right after the magicians turning believers, there was a problem for the Pharaoh and his following. And the problem was they were afraid. And we have to understand here, this is a mindset of a dictator. The mindset of a tyrant is that they're always afraid they're going to lose their followers. In fact, any ideology, it's not just a tyrant. In fact, there are similarities if you study ideologies, all kinds of ideologies, right-wing ideologies, left-wing ideologies, any kind of ideology. There are a lot of similarities, striking similarities between ideologies and dictators and tyrants. Because some people in their minds, tyrants are only, those people ruling certain countries in the Middle East. These are the tyrants. Or maybe some communist regime. That's one form, that's one example of tyranny, but ideology by definition is tyrannical. By nature, it is tyrannical. And we'll see now, and today, inshallah, we'll learn some of those things, some of these traits of ideologies. So the problem now to the Pharaoh and his followers is that, well, if the magicians became believers, well, obviously other people will be becoming believers as well, because the magicians occupied such a high position in the state. They were influential people, right? So if they're influential people, imagine if someone influential converts to a different religion, right? Or they believe in something different than the state. And obviously that is a danger to the state, right? And here the Pharaoh and his followers felt that they have to do something about it. They have to stop this big problem. And that's exactly what verse number 127 said in Surah Al-A'raf. It says, وَقَالَ الْمَلَأُ مِنْ قَوْمِ فِرْعَوْنَ. So Al-Mala', remember, Al-Mala' are the people right around the Pharaoh, the closest people to the Pharaoh, like the ministers and the people who are advising the Pharaoh. So those are the people who are speaking here and giving advice to the Pharaoh of Egypt. So they said, أَتَذَرُ مُوسَى وَقَوْمَهُ لِيُفْسِدُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ. Are you going to leave Musa and his people, his followers? Are you going to leave them spread corruption on earth? So this is how they perceive it. The fact that Musa was gaining more following from the Egyptians, to them, that's a form of corruption, right? So that's what they told the Pharaoh. They told him, they're going to spread corruption on earth. وَيَذَرَكَ وَآلِهَتَكَ. And the other problem is, these people, they're going to leave you, the Pharaoh, and they're going to leave your worship. All right? And that's the striking similarity. So that's a striking similarity between tyranny and ideology. Because ideology has the same concern. It has the same fear that it's going to lose followers. And this is why part of an ideology, any ideology, is that you have to close your mind. You cannot use your mind. You're not allowed to use your intellect. You just have to listen and obey. Whatever the leader, the person in charge of that organization or party or sect, whatever they tell you, you just have to follow, and you're not allowed to use your mind or to make your own opinion. That is not allowed in an ideology, and it's not allowed in a tyranny. All right? So that's the main fear of these people. See what Musa is doing here, what Moses is doing, he's taking people away from you. He's taking followers away from you. And unfortunately, sometimes we hear it among, certain circles, Muslim circles, like a certain party, a certain, sheikh is afraid that he's going to lose his followers. So they start warning against other sheikh or other school or other, madhab, right? So that is the problem here. All right. So again, for the people who came late, it's Surah number 7, Surah Al-A'raf, and it's ayah number 127. Okay, ayah number 127. So now the reaction of the Pharaoh, obviously the Pharaoh freaked out, right? He was really, scared now that he's gonna lose more following. I mean, not only he lost the magicians, right? Now he's afraid he's gonna lose more people to Musa, right? So the decision of the Pharaoh was, okay, and this is how a tyrant thinks. The tyrant does not think about, let me convince them, right? He's not interested. He's not in the business of convincing others. Just like an ideology. It is not interested in presenting a proof and a counter-proof. It's not in that business to begin with. So don't even waste your time. In an ideology, only power speaks, just like tyranny. Only the language of power speaks. And this is exactly what the Pharaoh said. He said, we will kill the sons and let the daughters live. Now, if you remember, this is a similar verdict as when Musa was born, right? So it seems like this is something that the Pharaoh comes up with every time there is danger. He automatically comes up with that, verdict that we need to kill all the boys, right? Obviously, it did not work the first time, but it seems because of the closed-mindedness and the narrow-mindedness, these people don't even learn a lesson. All right? So they can make the same mistake over and over again. Now look at the answer of Musa alayhi salam. This is important here because we have to know how to operate when we are in a position of oppression. Like when you are oppressed, you don't have any power whatsoever. Just like Musa and his followers. Remember, Musa and his followers were in Egypt, and they had no privilege whatsoever, right? So they are a minority. They are weak. They don't have any position of power. They don't have any authority whatsoever. So all types of weaknesses you could identify with Musa and his followers. So they had no say whatsoever, right? So this is a particular situation that many people nowadays find themselves in. And they say, what do we do in that case? We're totally overpowered, overwhelmed. And, there's somebody in power, he's a tyrant, or maybe a particular ideology is in power, and there's nothing we can do about it. So look at the response of Musa alayhi salam. So he said, قال Musa, this is the ayah number 128, the next verse, verse number 128. قال موسى لقومه استعينوا بالله واصبروا. All right? So Musa and his people said, Musa said to his people, so he said a few things, and these are the things we have to really internalize here. All right? So, number one, he said you have to seek help from God, from Allah. I want to underline these things because I know a lot of times when Muslims are told this, Muslims, right, they belittle these things. And they say, oh, you're not, you need to be an activist and you're not active enough, or you are, apolitical, for example, right? Or you are a quietist. We hear all kinds of terms. And the problem is, you can use any label you like, but the question is, are you following the divine guidance? I don't care what you call me. You can call me quietist all you want. You can call me an activist all you want. These are labels. They don't matter. Because to someone, I'm a quietist. To the other one, I'm an activist. It's all subjective. And you might rank, higher or lower on different people's scales, right? What matters, and the real scale here, is the divine scale. So look at how Musa responded to this verdict. He said, number one, you have to seek help from God. Like, this is a time to resort to prayer. I know a lot of people underestimate the power of prayer. And you have to be patient. Now, again, a lot of people, when you say patience, especially in the face of a tyrant, automatically they translate it into quietism. Oh, you are, you're afraid of the tyrant, right? Or you're not courageous enough. Well, are you going to be more courageous than Musa? That's a question I'm going to ask. Are you more courageous than Musa alayhi salam? Musa was known for his strength and his courage. He used to stand up in front of the Pharaoh by himself or with his brother. Has anyone done that before? From those who speak all the time and talk about, being, an activist, right? So, and then look at, this is really important, but this is like a principle now. So it's not just an advice or a recommendation from Musa to his people that you have to seek help from God and you have to be patient. Also, what is important is the following, because this is a principle that it should apply all the time, right? But there are, of course, some conditions, and we talked about that last time, and that's a law of inheritance. Who inherits the earth? A law of inheriting the land. And we talked about some aspects, but let's see what Musa alayhi salam said here. He said, إِنَّ الْأَرْضَ لِلَّهِ يُورِثُهَا مَن يَشَاءُ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ. Indeed, the earth belongs to God. The earth belongs to God, and he gives it to whomsoever he wishes. So whatever you see around you, whoever is, in a particular land, whatever government is any particular land, or whoever becomes a president over a particular land, this is a matter that is controlled by God. And it's up to him who's ruling what, or who's controlling what land. Now, this is a reality that is really hard to swallow for many people. And they think that when you say that, it means that you do not do anything about oppression. But we're going to see here more details, inshallah. But that's a principle that we have to internalize. We have to accept. See, the problem is some people do not even accept this concept that the earth belongs to God and it's up to him. And this is mentioned a few times in the Quran. It's up to him who's going to inherit the earth. And sometimes it happens because someone deserves it, and sometimes it happens because of other reasons. Okay, and the last thing that Musa said, وَالْعَاقِبَةُ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ, and that's a general principle, applies also to everything. He said, the good guys, I'm going to translate it into American English. The good guys always win at the end. Or we could say you have the, what is it? The like the last laugh or something like that. So al-aqibatu wa-taqwa means the people who have taqwa will end up with the best results at the end. The people who have the quality of God fearing will always have the best ending. They have the final say. All right? Al-aqibatu wa-taqwa. Now his people, just like many Muslims today, many Muslims today would have the exact same response. And this is a prophet of Allah, right? But today we have similar responses. So look what his people said. These are the followers of Musa alayhi salam. So supposedly they believe in God, they believe in the prophet. Look what they said. قالوا أوذينا من قبل أن تأتينا ومن بعد ما جئتنا. They said, we were harmed before you came and after you came. Like you are negligible almost. Like you did not make a difference in our lives. Imagine they are talking to Musa alayhi salam like that. They're talking to Moses, a prophet of God. They're talking to him like that. They said, you did not make a difference. We were persecuted before you came, and now we're persecuted after you came. Imagine them talking to Musa like that. And again, I want you to think about some examples today. And when you come and say, hey, this is the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, this is how you're supposed to interact, or this is how you're supposed to face oppression. And you just give them some principle from the Quran or the sunnah, the immediate reaction from many people, they're going to say, oh, but you're not speaking against injustice. And almost similar to what they said to their prophet. They said, like, you are not making any difference. You're not active enough. They want someone who is like an activist, right? So they're saying you're not active enough. We're facing oppression before you came and after you came, so you did not make a difference. Because they're only thinking short term. They're only thinking short term. That's one of the big problems, that they're thinking short term. And they want this reactionary type of activity, which you see a lot in the activism we see today. They're only concerned about the short term. Look at the long term, no accomplishments whatsoever. You go back to square one. Whatever they were doing in 2016, they're doing now, 2020. The prophetic way, and that's how we should think about it, because Musa alayhi salam is a prophet. He's not just a prophet of Banu Israel. He's our prophet as well, right? So he's a guide to us. And if he wasn't, he would not be mentioned in the Quran. And you know that the Quran devoted a lot of verses talking about Musa alayhi salam. He's the most mentioned prophet in the Quran, and for a reason. And this is definitely one good example of that. All right? So you see the reaction of his people. And Musa does not quit. So Musa has this patience, right? Because he's a true prophet, right? So he has this patience. He knows how to deal with people like that. So he doesn't quit on them. He said, "Asa rabbukum an yuhlika aduwakum." And you see this optimism coming out of Musa alayhi salam, because you need a lot of optimism overnight. We have to realize that the lifetime of a person is totally different from a lifetime of a government or a civilization. Those things tend to take a lot of time. The rise and fall of civilizations, that takes a lot of time. So some people, especially like now, I know some people, watching the Arab Spring or something, from recent history, they become totally impatient, because even in my own life, I don't see it coming overnight. It takes years for me to change. If we're talking about solid change, like real change, it's not going to come overnight. So imagine now we're talking about a civilization or a government, that takes even longer. So we have to realize that. And that's why you need a lot of patience. So the answer of Moses was, Asa rabbukum an yuhlika aduwakum. He said, like as if he's saying, Inshallah, I hope God will destroy your enemy. But you see this word asa, right? Like you're certain, but it's not going to happen now. That's the meaning of asa. So he does not doubt the victory, the divine victory. But he also doesn't say it's going to happen immediately. He doesn't say it's going to happen right away. And so this is his wish and his optimism and his hope that he will destroy the enemy and he will make you inherit the earth. And then he will see how you do. Now you see that God will actually, impose certain types of punishments on the Pharaoh and his people. So this is part of the divine punishment, but it's going to come in stages, because God doesn't take any sides. He doesn't favor anyone over anyone else. So, for example, if the Pharaoh was to believe, then he become equal to Musa and his followers. So in Islam, we don't believe that a tribe is better than another tribe, right? Or that one tribe was favored by God more than, and if it was favored, it's not that he likes them more. It means that they were sent more prophets, so they have more responsibility in that case. It doesn't mean that they're just favored for the way they look or the way they come, the way they speak. God doesn't play favoritism like that. So here we see this gradual reminders from Allah, from God. It doesn't even say they're punishment. It says they're signs. Because after all, God wants these people, the Egyptians, for example, or the Pharaoh, to be reminded so they go back to the truth. All right? So this is what Allah wants from everyone, not just the children of Israel, and not just from the Egyptians, from everyone. So you see this gradual reminder. I'm going to call it reminder. All right. So here it says the family of the Pharaoh, and here it means the followers of the Pharaoh, were tested by famine. As-sinin means famine. وَنَقْصٍ مِنَ الثَّمَرَاتِ, and reduction in harvest, right? So they're not able to collect as much harvest or produce as they used to, right? So this is a form of punishment, or a reminder, we can say, or a sign, a sign from God that you have to correct your course, that you're going in the wrong path. You have to make some corrections in your path. And exactly, this is exactly what the verse said. This is number 130. Verse 130 says, لَعَلَّهُمْ يَذَّكَّرُونَ. So they are reminded. Again, this is not about, God avenging some people or for the sake of other people, something like that. This is not it at all. This is more about reminding people, whether it is the Pharaoh and his people or Musa and his people. So this is a reminder, it says. فَإِذَا جَاءَتْهُمُ الْحَسَنَةُ قَالُوا لَنَا هَذِهِ. Sorry, we're having some difficulties in the connection, but I think we're back. The response from the Pharaoh and his people was, so they were looking at what's happening around them. And if it was a good year and it was good harvest, they would say, because we deserve it, right? This is usually the mindset of a tyrant, the mindset of someone egotistical, like someone with lots of ego. This is how they react. If something good happens in their lives, you get a lot of money, you pass the exam, you say, oh, because I deserve it. And if something bad happens, if something not in their favor happens, then they say, oh, it's because of Musa and their people. Like Musa is bringing bad omen to us. He's bringing bad luck to us. You see this a lot, in fact, even nowadays. On one hand, if something good happens, you say it's because of me, because I deserve it. If something bad happens, you say, oh, someone is bringing bad luck to me. It's because of this friend or this acquaintance or someone in your circle of friends or your social circle. You're gonna accuse someone of bringing bad luck. This is exactly what the Pharaoh and his people were doing. If something good happens, it's because of us, because we deserve it. If something bad happens, they say it's because of Musa and his followers, and them bringing bad luck. Now, of course, Allah responds here and says, it's all from Allah. I mean, good and bad. So you can't play a game like that. You cannot have it both ways, right? So that's the meaning. ألا إنما طائرهم عند الله ولكن أكثرهم لا يعلمون. So it means basically that their luck is with Allah, regardless. If you want to believe in this idea of luck, then the right way to believe in it is what this verse says. That luck always, I mean, whatever it is, good or bad, it's coming from God. That's the solution of it. But you cannot be picky like that. You cannot say good luck comes from me, bad luck comes from someone else, right? Many people play this game, by the way. But here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes the correction. If you believe in this idea of ta'ir, which means luck, then it's all from Allah, right? No one has control over that, regardless of what you believe in, right? All right. Now the Pharaoh and his people kept on, and they said, whatever. So remember this famine that came and stuff? He said, whatever we see, we're not going to believe in you. We're not going to believe in your magic, because after all, even if we see the famine in front of us, you come with to put a spell on us, we're not going to believe in you. Whatever magic you do, you pull on us, we're not going to believe in you. So now came the second phase of punishment, or let's call it a test. The second phase was, and these are the well-known signs you hear about. They're what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are mentioned here. So it says, فَأَرْسَلْنَا عَلَيْهِمُ الطُّوفَانَ وَالْجَرَادَ وَالْقُمَّلَ وَالضَّفَادِعَ وَالدَّمَ آيَاتٍ مُفَصَّلَاتٍ. So we sent on them, Tufan is a flood, right? So the flood obviously destroys fields and houses. So that's one type of punishment. The second one is al-jarad, which is locust, grasshopper, right? So the locust obviously eats the harvest, right? It eats all the plants and trees and everything. So it destroys the harvest, right? Destroys, the produce. And then al-qummal, lice. So that's obviously an attack on the human himself, right? The lice, obviously in the hair. Al-dafadi', frogs. So frogs is another kind of punishment. And I guess in two ways. One, because the annoying sound they make. So imagine they're making that sound over and over again. If they're making it day and night, like you can't sleep, right? And the other aspect is that some scholars mentioned that these frogs were filling up all the pots and everything, so you can't even cook or anything because they're everywhere. So these are the two things mentioned by scholars here, how frogs were a punishment from God. And the last thing is a dam, blood. And here they said could mean that that water turned into blood. So they can't use water anymore. They can't drink, or they have to drink blood in order to drink at all. So these were the signs, again, reminders, or you can say punishment from God. Again, as like a more severe reminder than the first one. So you could see the reminders escalating, right? Initially, it was just famine and stuff like that. Now it's like 5 different types of punishment that touches, different aspects of your life. This punishment touches different aspects of your life. So now you see this escalation. Yet it says, فَاسْتَكْبَرُوا. They stayed arrogant. That didn't work. وَكَانُوا قَوْمًا مُجْرِمِينَ. All right.